The day I lost my job was the same day I discovered who truly saw my worth. I walked out of that office carrying a small cardboard box filled with my belongings, believing my life had fallen apart. But I had no idea that behind one old neighbor's quiet smile and one unexpected door opening, a second chance was waiting for me. Before we begin this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of helping others, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us that even the smallest acts of kindness can change a life. For almost 3 years, I lived in a small apartment building at the edge of town. It was the kind of place where people passed each other in the hallway without knowing their names. Everyone was busy fighting their own battles, trying to pay bills, chase dreams, and survive another difficult day. But on the 3rd floor lived a woman named Eleanor, an elderly neighbor who seemed to have been forgotten by the world. I first noticed her during a freezing winter morning when I saw her struggling to carry a heavy bag of groceries up the stairs. She moved slowly, holding onto the railing with trembling hands. Many people walked past her, looking away as if her struggle was invisible. I remember standing there, watching her fight to take one more step, and something inside me told me I could not simply walk away. I carried her groceries to her apartment and helped fix a broken light in her kitchen that same day. It was supposed to be a small favor, something anyone with a little compassion would do. But after that day, I began checking on her regularly. Every morning before work, I would knock on her door, make sure she had everything she needed, bring her mail inside, or simply sit with her for a few minutes so she would not feel alone. Eleanor had lived many years, but loneliness had become her greatest enemy. Her husband had passed away, her children lived far away, and most days she only heard the sound of her own footsteps inside her quiet home. She never asked for much. Sometimes she only needed someone to listen. Sometimes she needed help opening a stubborn jar or changing a light bulb. Sometimes she just needed someone to remind her that she still mattered. Helping Eleanor became the brightest part of my day. It gave me a feeling that my own struggles could not take away. But outside her apartment, my own life was slowly falling apart. I worked at a company where I had spent nearly 8 years trying to prove myself. I arrived early, stayed late, and gave everything I had to my job. I thought dedication would always be rewarded. I thought loyalty meant something. But when the company faced financial problems, I became one of the easiest people to blame. My boss had always been distant. He rarely noticed the extra hours I worked or the problems I solved behind the scenes. One afternoon, he called me into his office and told me my position was being eliminated. There was no warning, no appreciation, and no understanding of how much that job meant to me. After years of giving my best, I was suddenly walking out the door as if I had never mattered. The hardest part was not losing the paycheck. The hardest part was the fear. I had rent to pay, responsibilities to handle, and no idea what I would do next. I felt embarrassed telling people I was unemployed. I felt like I had failed. I started avoiding friends because I did not want anyone to see how lost I had become. But every day, even during those dark moments, I still visited Eleanor. Somehow, helping her reminded me that my life still had purpose. She never looked at me like someone who had lost a job. She looked at me like someone who still had value. One evening, after another unsuccessful day searching for work, I sat outside my apartment feeling completely defeated. I wondered if kindness mattered when life could still be so unfair. At that moment, Eleanor came outside and sat beside me. She had noticed my sadness for weeks but never judged me. Instead, she reminded me that difficult seasons do not define a person. They only reveal their strength. Her words stayed with me, but I still did not know how much my life was about to change. A few weeks later, I received a phone call that I almost ignored because I assumed it was another rejection. But when I answered, I heard a familiar voice. It was my former boss. My first thought was confusion. I could not understand why he was calling me after the way everything ended. He asked if he could meet with me, and although I was hesitant, I agreed. The next day, I stood outside a large house in a quiet neighborhood. My heart was racing because I had no idea why I was there. I knocked on the door, and when it opened, I froze. Standing in front of me was Eleanor's son. The man who opened the door was the same person who had been running the company where I worked. The same person who had fired me. Suddenly, everything connected. He had been visiting his mother from a distance, and he had heard every story about the neighbor who helped her when no one else did. He told me that after losing my job, he had learned about the sacrifices I had made for his company. He admitted that he had judged people too quickly and had failed to recognize the kind of person I truly was. He explained that watching how I treated his mother showed him something no resume could ever show: character. That moment changed everything. He offered me a new opportunity, not because he felt sorry for me, but because he finally understood my value. The job came with more responsibility, but it also came with something I had been missing for years: respect. My life did not become perfect overnight. There were still challenges. There were still difficult days. But I learned that kindness is never wasted. The help we give to others often returns in ways we never expect. Eleanor continued to be part of my life. She was no longer just an elderly neighbor. She became family. I realized that the small moments I thought nobody noticed had created a powerful impact. Carrying groceries, fixing small problems, and sharing simple conversations had meant more than I ever imagined. Years later, when I looked back on that painful day when I lost my job, I no longer saw it as the day my life ended. I saw it as the day life pushed me toward something greater. Sometimes a closed door is not a punishment. Sometimes it is simply leading you toward the door that was meant to open. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness, compassion, and second chances still matter, please support this video by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Kindness Corner. Every interaction helps these stories reach more people who need a little hope. Before we reach the end, I want to ask you something special. Comment: kindness always matters, if you believe one small act of kindness can change someone's entire life. Because in the end, we may forget many things people do for us, but we never forget how someone made us feel when we needed kindness the most. A simple helping hand, a few minutes of care, or a moment of compassion can create a ripple that reaches farther than we will ever know. Sometimes the person you help today may be the person who opens a door for you tomorrow.